Have you ever noticed that when you start to change, for real, the people around you begin to feel uncomfortable? They don't speak openly, of course. They will disguise it with jokes, with advice masked as concern, or with that awkward silence when you talk about something deeper. But deep down, what's really happening is simple. Your mental evolution threatens their comfort zone, and no one likes to be forced to confront their own complacency. Perhaps you are going through exactly this right now. You've started to think differently, act differently, maybe even question things you once accepted without a second thought. And suddenly, you began to feel alone, misunderstood, judged. What no one told you, and what Nietzsche understood better than anyone else, is that this is the price of building a strong mind. Not just any kind of strength, but a strength so intense, so real, that it makes others uncomfortable. It scares them. It exposes, without saying a word, the weakness of those who still live on autopilot. But why does this happen? Because a truly powerful mind is a threat to collective mediocrity. And Nietzsche was clear about this. When you decide to think for yourself, create your own values, and abandon the comfortable illusion of ready-made truths, you become dangerous. Dangerous to the system, dangerous to others, and most importantly, dangerous to your former self. This video is a call, a challenge. It's not made for those who are comfortable, nor for those who want easy answers. It's made for you, who is tired of being a hostage to your own insecurities, who feels on the brink of an internal rupture, and who is ready to build something that no one can destroy, a mind that no one can manipulate, a mind that terrifies because it does not bend. So, if you feel ready for this path, a lonely, tough, but absolutely transformative path, stay, because what Nietzsche has to teach you will confront you, but it can also set you free. And after this, you will never think the same way again. Nietzsche was not just a philosopher. He was a surgeon of the human soul. Someone who had the courage to look into the abyss of existence and not only face it, but dive into it. And it is precisely in that abyss, in that inner chaos that many avoid, that he found the source of true strength. Because, for Nietzsche, it is not in peace, stability, or order that a human being transforms. It is in pain. It is in the fall. It is in chaos. He wrote, "You need to have a chaos inside you to give birth to a dancing star." This is not poetic metaphor. It is psychological diagnosis. It means that if you want to build an unshakable mind, you need to abandon the childish idea that it will happen through comfort, cheap motivation, or positive affirmations. No, true strength is born when you face suffering without fleeing, when you stop asking for life to be easier and start wishing to be stronger. Think of the times you grew the most. Was it when everything was fine? Or was it when you were shattered, lost, directionless, having to rebuild yourself with your own hands? Nietzsche believed that suffering was not a mistake of existence, but rather its main driving force. He did not romanticize pain. He faced it as a tool. And if you can change your relationship with pain, with failure, with loneliness, you begin to shape something rare, an indomitable spirit. And it is precisely there that the world begins to be disturbed by you. Because while most flee from chaos, you will learn to walk within it. While others beg for normality, you will create greatness. But this transformation requires a brutal break with everything you were taught about strength. Being strong is not about smiling all the time. It is not about having fake emotional control. Being strong is enduring the unbearable and coming out on the other side, even more dangerous. But Nietzsche knew that chaos by itself is not enough. You can be destroyed by it if you do not have an inner center, an anchor, And that is why, in the next part, we will talk about the most decisive moment of Nietzschean philosophy, when he kills God and places upon you the full weight of existential responsibility. Because when there is no longer a sky to look up to, it is within you that the universe needs to be born. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. When Nietzsche declared, "God is dead," he was not celebrating. He was issuing a warning that many still do not understand today. What he killed was not a divine figure in itself. He killed the illusion that there is a higher authority taking care of everything. The illusion that there is a plan, a pre-established meaning, a purpose given by someone from the outside. The death of God is the end of any excuse. And that is frightening, because until then, it was easy to outsource the responsibility for your life. It was comforting to believe that everything has a reason, that suffering is part of a divine plan, that there is a greater good that will justify everything in the end. Nietzsche violently tears this veil away. He looks you in the face and says, "You are alone. There is no ready-made meaning. Now, you are the creator." And this is where the true construction of a powerful mind begins, because most people collapse when they realize they are alone in the face of chaos, without a manual, without guarantees, with no one to blame. But those who have the courage to face this without crumbling, they begin to forge an unshakable consciousness. With the death of God, Nietzsche pushes you into the abyss of radical freedom. You should not follow commandments. You must create values. You should not obey. You must surpass yourself. It is the birth of brutal autonomy. And along with it comes the weight. Everything now depends on you. There is no more absolution. There is no more salvation. Either you build yourself or you sink. But here is the secret. This freedom that frightens you is also the greatest source of power you can have. When you understand that no one will come to save you, something within you awakens. A fire that compels you to rise even while bleeding. That forces you to think for yourself, to feel for yourself, to act not because someone said it is right, but because you decided it is. It is in this rupture with existential crutches that Nietzsche prepares the ground for something even more grandiose. The emergence of a new way of being. A type of human being who does not live according to the rules of the herd, who does not need approval or permission. A being who creates their own morality, who surpasses their own limits and lives as a creator. A being that frightens the weak because it forces them to see themselves as they truly are. This being has a name. Nietzsche called it the Übermensch, the Overman. And it is about him that we will talk now. Because if you want to build a mind so strong that no one can break it, you need to understand how to become this figure who lives above conventions, guided only by their own will to power. Let's dive into this. Nietzsche did not believe in the slow and passive evolution of humanity. He believed in rupture, in radical transformation, in creative destruction. And that is why he conceived the idea of the Übermensch, the Overman. It is not about a superhero. It is not someone with mystical powers. The Übermensch is a being who has overcome everything that binds the ordinary man: guilt, obedience, herd morality, the need for acceptance. The Übermensch does not seek to be accepted. He does not ask for permission to exist. He creates his own internal laws and lives by them, even if that puts him against the entire world. And that is exactly why his mind becomes unbreakable. Because it is not built on the expectations of others. It does not need external approval to validate itself. It is self-sufficient. It feeds on its own will to power, the deep impulse to shape reality in its own image. This is the central point. The Übermensch does not adapt to the world. He imposes meaning on the world. He does not seek comfort. He seeks greatness. He does not ask, "Is this allowed?" He asks, "Is this worthy of me?" And this shift in perspective changes everything. Because when you start to see yourself as a creator, not as a servant, the way you think, act, and feel transforms completely. But here lies the problem. Becoming this kind of being requires sacrifice. You will have to kill parts of yourself that still beg for approval. You will have to face the pain of not belonging. You will have to bear the weight of building your identity from scratch, without guarantees, without pats on the back, without applause from the audience. And most people cannot handle it. They give up before they start. They run back to the safety of ready-made beliefs, dogmas, and rules that someone else wrote for them. The path to the Übermensch is lonely, and Nietzsche knew this. He himself lived on the margins, misunderstood, called mad, isolated from the world he was trying to liberate. But it was in that isolation that he found his freedom. And this is what you need to understand. The stronger your mind becomes, the further you drift from the masses. The higher you rise, the more you disturb. The construction of the Übermensch is the most brutal and transformative process anyone can face, because it requires you to destroy everything that is not yours. Everything that has been imposed on you by a sick culture, by a society that rewards obedience and punishes authenticity. And only after destroying do you begin to build. But this construction does not happen amidst the crowd. It happens in silence, in withdrawal, in the deep solitude that separates the strong from the weak. And that is exactly why, in the next part, we will dive into the most neglected and most powerful aspect of this journey, the solitude of the strong. Because the truth is that to become unshakable, you will have to learn to walk alone. And few are ready for that, are you? If what you're hearing resonates with you, you'll find real value in my ebook, Beyond the Shadow. It breaks down Jung's core ideas and gives you tools to understand yourself more deeply. Link is in the pinned comment. If there's something that no one tells you about the path of mental strength, it's this. The stronger you become, the more lonely you feel. And it's not because you isolate yourself by choice. It's because the world starts to not know what to do with you. Nietzsche spoke clearly about this. The free spirit, the one who breaks away from common morality, who does not accept easy truths, who thinks for themselves, inevitably distances themselves from the herd. And that distancing hurts. But that pain is necessary. Because real growth requires space. And you can't grow while being tied to the expectations of others. Most people live within an invisible herd where every thought is policed, every action is measured by others' reactions. You've gotten used to walking in a group, thinking like the group, feeling secure because there are people around you. But what Nietzsche proposes is the opposite. He tears you away from that comfort and throws you into the desert. In that desert, there are no applause, no praise, no guide. There's only you, your doubts, your traumas, your fears, your desire to give up. And that's where the real test begins. Because what will most people do? They will run back. They will hide again behind their masks. They will pretend they don't feel, that they don't think, that they don't see. But you, if you truly want to become someone that no one can break, will have to stay. You will have to endure the silence that reveals who you really are. Nietzsche said, "The individual must always struggle not to be overwhelmed by the tribe. If you try, you will often feel lonely and sometimes scared. But no price is too high to pay for possessing yourself." That is the essence, the possession of oneself, the rarest and most powerful achievement anyone can attain. Because when you truly possess yourself, no one else can control you. No one else dictates your worth, and no one else can bring you down. But this possession comes with the weight of loneliness. You will lose people. You will be misunderstood. You will hear that you are arrogant, strange, distant. They will try to pull you back into the mold. They will call you crazy, cold, insensitive. But that is the price of not being domesticated. It is the price of not needing applause. It is the price of not living as a mirror of others' needs. And here is the raw truth. If you cannot stand loneliness, you are not ready for freedom. Because all real freedom comes with abandonment. Abandonment of emotional crutches, of comfortable illusions, of utilitarian friendships. That's why Nietzsche saw solitude as a privilege, a battlefield where the true self finally has space to emerge. But this free mind, this elevated spirit does not just walk alone. It begins to see what others do not see. And with that comes the second inevitable effect, the confrontation with mediocrity. Because when you start to become strong, the collective mediocrity feels it. And it reacts. And that is exactly what we will talk about next, the danger of collective mediocrity. Because the world does not pursue those who are the same. It pursues those who dare to stand out. Nietzsche did not fear tyrants, authoritarian leaders, or declared oppressors. What he feared, and denounced with philosophical fury, was the subtle and corrosive power of collective mediocrity, that invisible system that keeps everyone leveled down, that punishes those who dare to think differently, that rewards obedience and disguises cowardice as virtue. True tyranny, according to Nietzsche, does not come from above. It comes from the sides. It comes from the crowd that demands you remain small so that they do not have to grow. And that is exactly what happens when you start to stand out. When your mind becomes sharper, your spirit firmer, your presence more uncomfortable. You begin to disturb, not because you are doing something wrong, but because you are doing something rare. You are breaking the mold. And society hates those who break molds. Collective mediocrity cannot stand individual brilliance, because that brilliance exposes the darkness of ordinary life. Nietzsche called this the slave morality, a morality built by those who, unable to achieve greatness, decided to invert values. They transformed strength into arrogance, ambition into selfishness, independence into coldness. And with that, they created a moral system that protects the weak and condemns the strong. But make no mistake, it is not out of compassion, it is out of resentment. Because the weak do not want to be saved. They want the strong to be destroyed. That is why, when you start to liberate yourself, they begin to attack you. Sometimes directly, sometimes subtly, with looks, silence, irony. But the message is clear. Go back to the group. You are making us feel small. And you are. Unintentionally. Just by being who you are. Nietzsche understood that most people live in a state of paralyzing conformity, an existence shaped by fear, guilt, and obedience. And anyone who questions this state is seen as a threat. But do not be fooled. Mediocrity does not attack with force. It attacks with numbers, with consensus, with the weight of repetition. It will try to make you doubt yourself. It will make you think you are wrong for not fitting in. It will use all social resources, from shame to exclusion, to make you lower your head. And it is at this moment that many give up. Because they cannot bear to be the strange, the difficult, the arrogant. But Nietzsche would give you another name, necessary. Because while the world revolves around recycled ideas, manufactured desires, and comfortable truths, it is the strong individual who brings the necessary discomfort for something new to be born. Your difference is the spark of transformation, but it is also the target of resistance. Being strong, thinking freely, living autonomously, all of this is an act of war against collective mediocrity. And like any war, it requires preparation. It requires weapons, but not physical weapons, mental weapons. And that is exactly what we'll talk about now in the final part. Because there is a very high cost to developing a mind so strong that it frightens. But there is also a reward that no one can take away. In the next part, you will understand the price and the power of being unbreakable. You made it this far. That already sets you apart from the majority. Most people would have closed this video at the first provocation. They would have run away at the first discomfort. They would have turned it off the moment they realized this is not content meant to stroke the ego. It's a call to action, a call for those who are ready to let go of the comfortable illusion and face reality with their eyes wide open. Because building a mind so strong that it becomes feared is not just a choice, it's a renunciation. You will lose. You will lose friendships that were based on superficiality. You will lose opportunities that require submission. You will lose the ability to be content with little. But in exchange, you gain something priceless: integrity, clarity, presence. You will begin to notice that most people live in a slumber, and that your lucidity is frightening, that your firmness makes others tremble, that your absence is louder than the presence of many. This strength does not come from outside. It is not taught in self-help books, nor is it earned with ready-made phrases or empty affirmations. It is dug deep within the soul, in the silence of difficult nights, in the choices that no one sees. It is the result of an internal war between who you were and who you are becoming. And this war has no end. Because the truly strong are not those who have won. They are those who continue to fight, even when they could already stop. Nietzsche did not want to create followers. He wanted to provoke internal earthquakes. He wanted you to stop crawling for approval, to stop begging for meaning, to stop seeking in ready-made systems what can only be built with blood, sweat, and awareness. He wanted you to become dangerous, not in a violent sense, but in a rare sense, so rare that your mere existence forces others to look in the mirror and confront what they are avoiding. And now, I want to invite you to do something that will solidify this process. Write in the comments a truth you are tired of hiding, an opinion you are afraid to voice, a thought that makes you feel isolated, but that represents who you truly are. This is part of the journey, claiming your voice, showing your presence, and more than that, declaring that you will no longer bend. And if this video touched you, if something inside you was awakened, don't stop here. The next video is just as important as this one, perhaps even more so. It continues this journey. And if you've made it this far, you know you're not watching just out of curiosity. You are here because something inside you has already begun to change. So keep going. You are not alone. You are just ahead. And that, my dear, is frightening, but it is also liberating.